get into some of that. In the 1860s, the government looked to numerous industries to help to collect revenue to meet the ever-growing expenses from the Civil War. And so these medicines were out there for many, many years prior, some going way back to the late 1700s, early 1800s. Some of the companies we'll talk about were started in the early 1800s and had some pretty lucrative businesses. But the government looked to continue to support the Civil War to start to collect revenues from different industries. And medicines are one of them. In August of 1862, the printing of tax stamps began for these various commodities. I alluded to it earlier. Playing cards. We all had playing cards and they were taxed. Matches, just regular old matches that were used by the soldiers and or sea captains and anybody else that needed matches. Perfumes were also taxed. Cosmetics, canned fruit, and one of the most lucrative was this business of packaged remedies, which are known as proprietary remedies. You'll also hear the term quack medicine, right? So that's quack medicine is another term that's often used in this place. A lot of these were really kind of iffy if we would look at some of these contents today. As you might imagine, many of them contained some very interesting alcohol. Most of them were alcohol and or had cocaine and or had morphine or a number of things that, in addition to the other botanicals they might have added to them, was probably the real reason why the person felt so good after taking a pill or drinking whatever was in that bottle. The engraved stamps were produced from just regular old modest. They are unlike, once you start to see what they are, unlike most of the stamps that we're used to seeing that were issued by the federal government, whether it's general issue, commemoratives, airmails, even other revenues, which are beautiful in their own right that the US government issued. These are really some of them amazingly eye-catching. And there were billions that were produced. But these played a functional purpose. They were literally on the box or on the bottle and were ripped. They were meant to be destroyed when you opened the bottle or when you opened the box. You were supposed to slice them and open them, which was then you were paying the tax. And they were usually used to help seal the actual product. And some are really hard to obtain. There has been much study on this the past 100+ years. There's been books written and census down to almost how many numbers are known. And then some are also very, very common. But we'll look at these as we go through these next few slides here. So what is in that nostrum? That's the question. So many proprietors proclaimed they had magic cures. There were, at least if you look across the proprietors that have been studied over the past 100+ years, there were 35 physicians, legitimate MD physicians who really said they did some research here and what they put into their magic cures. And then there were other folks, as you might imagine, who claimed to be physicians, and they would use the word doctor in front of their name on their stamp or product with probably no real backing or education. And then there was a broad array of other folks that lived in this space: retail and wholesale druggists, apothecaries. There were some ministers that were peddling wares, liquor merchants, as you might imagine, with the high percent of content of alcohol in some of these interesting quote unquote medications, clerks, showmen, bookbinders. Everybody and anybody seemed to have gotten into this space of proprietary medicines. And some were very, very well known and famous across this country, like Demas Barnes was a congressman, and he was, and I'm writing a paper on him now too for the New York State Postal History Society. He was on the board of the Brooklyn Bridge Committee. He was on the board of directors for the Long Island Railroad, in a lot of different things. And he had a couple of proprietary medicine companies. Ray Von Pierce is another one. But by the end of the 19th century, so this started about the 1860s, went through to the 1890s. At the end of the 19th centuries, there was a large outcry by journalists and legitimate physicians and pharmacists over the secrecy of these nostrums or magic cures, exposing the possible dangers in some of these patent medicines. And, we'll never really know who didn't make it from whatever ailment they have by taking that actual, whatever that cure was, or if the cure actually did more damage than good. But this is really what led to the 1906 Food and Drug Act, which we're all aware of here 100 and change years later, and the role that the FDA plays in everything that we do, soup to nuts. And so what follows is a brief overview of the companies, the firms, some of the products that they produced and manufactured, and more importantly for this group and for us, the beautiful affixed Private Die Proprietary stamps. And so again, ask me as we go any questions, any follow-up, any comments, I'm happy to answer them. What you're going to see is an amazing array of engraving, different types of papers, different shapes, different sizes. Some are perforated, some are die cut, some are rouletted. So just a broad array of stamps that these proprietors were able to print underneath this act. And one of the companies that we know about, and we'll talk about them, Butler and Carpenter. And Butler and Carpenter printed for the US government the actual revenue stamps, US issued revenue stamps. They also then got into the business of, for the most part, printing Private Die Proprietary stamps first. And then later on in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s, it moved to printing by the National Banknote Company and the American Banknote Company. So the same printers that we know that were printing our, United States government general issued postage stamps and revenues and airmails also are involved in printing some of these. Hence why we see a variety of papers, old paper, silk paper, watermark paper, pink paper, and a very rare experimental silk paper. So a lot of different varieties. But so let's jump on in with that primer. Let's jump on in with that intro to one of the fellas that was the first to take advantage of this. What you're going to see is that these were not only utilitarian in one sense, is that they were attached to the product and paid the tax and also sealed in some cases the package, but they also were a major form of advertising for the company. Almost everybody put their picture on it, their name. These are usually not small, they're large. There's a lot of information on them. They're very ornate. And Dr. Herrick was literally the first fella with his company to take advantage of the trade once the law was passed. And so, he was the first one that questioned if he could get his own stamp. And Butler and Carpenter working with the government say, we'd be more than happy to help design your own dies. We will approve them. We'll get the government to approve them, and then we will also print them for you. And so it really was an interesting business. Dr. Herrick produced sugar-coated pills. Your guess is as good as mine is what in them, but we do know they were vegetable health pills, and it said a cure for many ailments. So go figure what it was curing, but that's how they marketed it. And they also made plasters, and everybody knows what a plaster is. It's a Band-Aid. It's an adhesive strip for, covering cuts and wounds. That's just what a plaster is. That's what they sold. And so this stamp here on the right, the large one, that says price 25 cents, dose from 2 to 6. It is a 1 cent Private Die Proprietary. There is a picture of Dr. Herrick right in the middle. That is not a small stamp. That is a large strip stamp. Probably 100 and change millimeters by 30 or so millimeters. And it would fit on the package, and it would seal that package. He also issued a second stamp there, Herrick's Pills and Plasters, the 1 cent orange there. And I've put the numbers, the catalog numbers that appear in Scott, if you want to go to that part of your book and look these up. That section is also color. So now you can see what these look like in full color. Here they are. These are all from my collection as we go through them. And so he was really the first that kicked this off. And a lot of other proprietors, once they saw this, they realized, we'll pay the tax. Not a problem. But if we could use this to market and also in some cases steal our packaging, and it had that multifocal use, everybody jumped on this bandwagon very quickly. So let's keep going. So here is, what did one of those boxes look like? Here is an original Dr. Herrick's sugar-coated pills box. This was the plain variety. If you could see my hand moving on the side of the box in red letters, it's hard to see. It says plain, P-L-A-I-N. This happens to be from 1920. It has the original contents. I am not going to eat one. Everybody has threatened, has said, Charlie, don't you try one and see what happens. I would probably want to be near my emergency department at my hospital if I try one of these. But here is the box. So this is later, after the stamps were no longer needed. But as you see, Herrick wanted to maintain the marketing, and this looks like his stamp. So his packaging looks like his stamp did in the 1860s and 70s. And so we kept it. This is about the size of an old box of matches. That's the size. It's 50 by 30 by 20. And you could read some of the details on the back. A reliable family purgative recommended for biliousness and digestion consumption. So they were writing all sorts of things on here. And inside that box was that piece of paper on the right, which were the directions, right? 2 pills is the dose in ordinary cases. Take them at night. Da, 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 da. I won't go through the details. But so that is an original box. It's amazing what is still out there and preserved if you go look in some of these interesting shops, especially in this part of the world, like in Gettysburg. There's an amazing amount of material that's sitting on shelves of what people might call ephemera, that when I see these, I'm all over these. They're just a great piece of history, great artifact. This one doesn't have a stamp because it's not from that era. I will show you packages that are from the 1860s, 70s that still have the stamp on them unopened the day that they were made. So here's a great little item. I like to marry the stamps with the packaging if I can get it, or the bottle, and the advertising trade cards, which I'll show you as well. Here's another one. B. Brandreth's Pills and Alcock's Porous Plasters. This is not a small stamp too. This is quite large. It's imperforate. It is on nice silk paper. You can see the silk fibers. You know, if you collect U.S. revenues or others, you've seen silk paper because the revenues are on silk paper as well, some of them. This is RS34B. In the catalog, A suffix is old paper. B is silk paper. C is pink paper. D is watermark paper. And E is experimental silk. So there is a naming convention, very consistent, and that's how we've done it and how we use it. And that's what you'll see in Scott catalog. They manufactured their pills in 1835, New York City, moved to Ossining. They soon had their plasters on the market. And then he wanted to advertise. So he commissioned a stamp early on as well. They issued these from 1863 to 65 during the war. This is not a small number, but almost 5 million on old paper, 10 million on silk, and about 105,000 on silk, 500,000 and 100 on old and silk were perforated. The perforated stamps of this are very, very rare. There are not many that have survived. Why? Again, these are on products. They were meant to be ripped open, so a lot of them have not survived. And so here you go, you'll see one. Now, let me show you what the product looks like. Here is an old wrapper. This is about 60 by 45 by 20. This now is a facsimile, if you will, stamp. This is a little bit later than the Civil War, but they didn't want to not use the stamp when the stamp was not required. So they just took that stamp image and they printed it on. These are chocolate coated pills in the box. That's the wrapper at the upper left. Inside, again, they always had the instructions talking about the pills and the healing and what it would do and how to do it. It says it's entirely vegetable and innocent. Well, yeah, if nobody's, looking over your shoulder, you can put whatever you want in it, and here you go, people are buying it. So, yeah, it was innocent. And I think folks felt really good after taking those pills because I think we all know probably what was in them. Here's another wrapper at the lower left. This one you see is plain. So do you want the chocolate coated ones or do you want the plain? Either way, here's what it looked like. Here at the lower right, as an aside, another form of advertising for these private die proprietors was almanacs. They printed almanacs by the millions and they gave them out, or they charged a couple of bucks, couple of pennies, few cents. It was a traditional almanac. There were places to write notes. It gave a little tips and tricks, anything and everything of the day. And they issued almanacs. So these are out there. Some are very, very ornate, very well printed. Some are small pamphlets, booklets. Others are very large. And they issue these every year for many, many years. Another form of advertising to go along with their products, with their wrappers, with their bottles, boxes, pills, and the stamps. So this was a massive trade. And we'll get to trade cards because they also had trade cards, very ornate, really nicely printed with the information on the back that would be in a general store or in a pharmacist or another sort of store, again, promoting their wares. So here's one of my favorites. These, again, are beautiful. These are just long, rectangular, very thin, beautiful picture of George facing left. Kind of looks like the 3-cent 1851 that the government issued. If you'll recall, Topin and Carpenter printed the first U.S. stamp, right? 1851, not number 1 and 2 with, Ben and George, but they got the contract to print the 1851 series. This is very similar to the Topin and Carpenter head. And remember, this was printed by Butler and Carpenter, the same Carpenter from Topin. So if they could reuse similar dies or something similar, they would. In this case, this is for the Fleming brothers out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They had what was called Dr. McLean's Celebrated Vermifuge and Liver Pills. And so it's just some great, fantastic stuff. Go take them. And so, this goes back to 1855. McLean passed. The products, became part of the Fleming brothers, Rolodex, if you will. They had liver pills, American worm-specific vermifuge and cruciform for rheumatism of man, and let's not forget beast. I don't know that you're feeding this to your horse, but go for it. Maybe your horse will feel better at the end of the day. But they had ivory polish for teeth. They had Mikado cologne, even cough syrup. Notice the play on words, kids, 2 Ds. I don't know that you were giving it to your kid, but maybe that would have kept them quiet. Maybe they were passed out for a couple hours. So whatever tonic was in that tonic, it was great stuff.
Charles?
Yes, please.
Do you know what in the world is a vermifuge?
So it's for killing worms, any sort of bug in your stomach, liver. So it's to kill anything in your intestines, while they're calling it worm specific or vermifuge. That's really what it was made for. Almost like a pesticide for your intestines, John. So really strong. But again, 2 beautiful stamps here. This nice 1 cent black and perforate. They issued quite a bit. These are out there. These are common. You could find these for a couple of bucks. Some of these stamps, are a few dollars, $3, $4, $5, $10. Some of these stamps are thousands. Some of them are even more than that. They're just a couple of known, on some rare paper. Usually they were torn and ripped apart. And so you just don't find many. But some have really stood well the test of time after 160, 70 years. And the one below in blue. There is one I'm not showing. It's very rare. It's probably $7, $8 grand. I mean, I don't care about the price as much. I just want to preserve the artifacts. But it looks like that blue one, but it's in black. They only issued about 190,000. Most of them did not survive. There's maybe 100 known, maybe less. Maybe less in the census. But the blue one's very common. They're out there. They're pretty. They're large. They're on silk paper. They're on watermark paper. They're on old paper. So let me show you what a box would look like if you went to go buy pills from them back in the 1860s. What would you have bought? You would have bought this. This is an unopened box, circa 1875, of a Fleming Brothers, number 25 Wood Street out of Pittsburgh, PA, of their genuine liver pills. If you shake it, I've done it, you hear the rattle inside. It has the same sort of pills that we saw here. I know what it looks like. I've seen an open box. That's what's inside this box. And you see the stamp. One, it has a beautifully printed wrapper. The black wrapper, I believe, might have been printed by the American Banknote Company National. I know it's at the bottom here if I look closely. So it's a beautiful wrapper. They wrap the box, and you could see that the stamp is used to seal the box corner and the top where it folds. It's a multi-use proprietary revenue stamp. These are gummed. This was wrapped. The pills are in the box. The box then got an outer wrapper. Then the outer wrapper where the seam was and the seal at the end, you lick the stamp, you put it on top, you sealed it, you put it on the shelf, you sold it for 25 cents. This was a 1 cent stamp. It paid the tax. The person would buy it. They would rip the ends open, hence why the stamps are usually damaged. And you got access to your pills, you'd throw away the wrapper. So the fact that this survived, and I was fortunate, again, I was out in Adams County in Gettysburg in a little shop that had Civil War memorabilia. And in the corner was these odds and end trinkets. And I saw this box. My head went, you don't want to get too happy, right? You don't want to get too crazy because then the guy's looking at you and he wants, And so I was fortunate to be able to, for a couple of bucks, it was more than a couple, acquire it. It's just a beautiful piece of history and artifact and of medicine. And it has stamp on it and engraving, just great stuff. And here on the right is one of those trade cards, very popular at the time, was to create your own postcard, thick, nice paper trade card that had on the back of this the description of the liver pills. And it had the druggist on the front because they were marketing and advertising it. This particular druggist is in Baltimore, Maryland, Robert F. Burton. And he, of course, had, a myriad of different things. And the sellers of these proprietors would go around and they would have their wares to put them on the shelf. And to market the drug, they would put these in a rack card. So these are just like rack cards like you see today for marketing. And that's what these are. So again, that's about the size of a normal postcard. Of course, they also had almanacs. I have a number of those as well. I probably got a few hundred almanacs from just about all of these medicine vendors from this time period. Just interesting things that they talked about. If you want to see what they were talking about in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, read one of these almanacs. Really amazing stuff. So there's an unopened box. Here, now let's move. This is some of my favorite. Beautiful stamps, beautiful engravings, very large, very ornate, interesting design. And these were to be used on bottles. I have no doubt everybody here has seen our old liquor bottles, even when the revenue stamps used to be along the top and down the side. They were sealed with that revenue stamp glued. It held it in place. You broke that seal and you opened it up and you drank your vodka, gin, rye, whatever. These stamps were also made to be put on the bottles that Swaim, MD, he was an MD, out of Philadelphia. He had his Swaim's Panacea. Panacea is a cure-all. Take it for what it's worth if this was a cure-all. And he had his stomach kick elixir. He established his business in the 1820s. This guy had been around for a long time. And then the tax came around and they offered these elixirs until 1870s. And then William Swaim took it over. So Butler and Carpenter, our old friends and engravers in Philly, were directed to engrave a private die strip, a long strip. I'm going to show it to you. It's 160 millimeters by 32. This is a nice size stamp. Takes up almost from page to page at the end. And it was in orange. I'm only showing you a small one. I'm going to show you a larger. It has dragon-headed snakes on it, and it could be used as a cork seal on their bottles. And I will show you because I have one. I have an original bottle. It has the original stamp on it. I'll go through. Printed in sheets of 16, 2x8, imperforate, or they were die cut. The imperforates are very rare. The die cuts are around. They are out there. And they come in various paper types. Most of them had a printed signature. This is a printed signature in black. The rest of the stamp is in orange. Very few of them have a manuscript. They printed the blank orange, and then one of the brothers, or the son and the father, would sign it. Very rare. They issued a 6-cent one. They issued an 8-cent one through that time period around the Civil War, and then they printed more through up until 1883. So they're out there. And just, a couple $100 a piece if you want to really dive into this. Most of them are ripped in half because they were ripped to get at the cork to open the bottle. Here's what they look like. Here's just two of mine. Beautiful stamps. They're just large. William and James Swaim. You can see the intricate central design that was engraved. You've got the snake body and these dragon heads pointing in with sharp teeth. Almost, very East Chinese, Japanese looking. Very, very, there's not many stamps that look like this. Pretty unique. And this is one, the top one, you'll see the center says JAS, James Swaim. And the lower one you'll see says WM for William Swaim. These are both die cut. So they were printed in these sheets, and then they would go in and they would die cut them out like you're seeing here. I do not have the 6-cent. It's around 20,000. There's only a couple of those known. Probably never going to have one, but I'm happy to have these two and preserve these. So what did these look like on bottle? So here's our friend, Dr. Swaim, passed away 1883, born in 1830. He was a man of many other talents. I did a little research on him. There's his headstone. I know where he is. Him and his family are. And here is an actual bottle. Here is a beautiful hand-blown in mold, applied lip. We call them B-malls if you collect bottles. Early smooth base, aqua, and it's round with these sunken panels. And here you see Swaim's, and this was the bottle, and here's the neck, and here's where you'd put that orange stamp. But this, they also printed an amazing label by another well-known engraver out of Philadelphia called Draper and Company. If you study essays, US essays, and you go to that section in Scott and you look at the early 3-cent essays, which Topin Carpenter won to print the 1851 stamps, Draper also submitted an essay to the federal government. They didn't win it. They were banknote printers, and they all were trying to get the stamp business. Swain's utilized Draper to print this amazing label. This is one of the more intricate rose engine and tessellated labels you'll ever see. This was on the bottle, just on the front of their bottle. And even gave a little directions and tells you what to take them with on the side. So now let me show you my fanciful recreation of what this would have looked like if you bought it in the 1870s. Here you go. Here is my facsimile. So that is not the original stamp, everybody. I made a copy and I cut it out and I wrinkled it up. So I aged it by crumpling it like it looked like a tax stamp. And I filled one of my bottles with green. It's water with green food coloring. It is not from the 1870s, believe me. I have a label on the front. I put that tax stamp on the top. That is what it would have looked like on a shelf if you went to a sundry and you went to go buy this panacea. I don't know. Would you? I mean, I would drink maybe. I would sip it. We'll see how it would taste. But I'm sure I would feel really good after having it. So that's what it would look like. So again, why most of these are damaged is because you would rip it at the top. So let me go back. So this is an unused copy. This one just was not used. It is unused and it's mint. This stamp I restored completely. If I showed you what it looked like when I received it, it was cruddy, dirty, grungy, had gum. It was dark. There was a mess, and it was ripped right here. And you could just barely see where the slice was. I went in and it took about a week, and because I do a little bit of restoring on the side, I've been restoring documents, stamps, papers for a long time. All of it's reversible. I use all of the archival materials. And this stamp was separated in two, and I brought it back together. I fixed a number of other areas that were creased and were folded over all throughout. And now it's been preserved. I think we've got to mute that, Steve, just because I'm getting feedback. Is that me or is that John? Thank you, sir. So let me keep going. So that's what it looked like. Let me go back to my slides.
I try to fix that. Hold on.
Steve, is that me or you want to do some audio? Steve, can you mute John? Thank you. Am I okay now? Can I keep going?
I think you're good. I'm sorry. I was searching for his screen.
No, that's okay. There he is. Got it. Okay, thank you. So let me go on to another. This is probably one of the most unique images, and it's a play on an image I'm sure we've all seen many, many times. This is William E. Clark out of Providence, Rhode Island. I think you can see this slide, right? Number 14, you can see the blue stamp there on the right, right? And that's Hunt's Remedy. It dates back to the early days in Manhattan, manufactured before Clark was even in Providence, took possession in 1872. He added health pills and liver cure and infallible eye wash to his products. He had a lot of interesting things. Hunt passed away 1880s, early 81. The business was operated as the Hunt's Remedy Company, but they didn't issue new stamps. They just kept using this. These are very, very popular. And they definitely, not a lot were issued. 9,000 of this stamp were only issued. And so you would think with 9,000 only being issued that this would be an exorbitant stamp. In this space, you could probably pick a nice one up for $300-400. They come in not great shape because they were on the package. But this is a macabre image of a man grabbing the dead, the neck of death, has a scythe and hourglass. So it is, death, and preparing to strike him with the bottle, of the remedy. And this is a small stamp. This is the size of a regular definitive U.S. definitive stamp. Pick a Washington Franklin. This is the size of that stamp. I've just blown it up to see the details. So here on the next slide, Here are some beautiful trade cards that they produced. Here's a little bit more of a fanciful one on the left. William Clark, the great kidney medicine, never known to fail. Cure, look at the cures. It cures dropsy and all diseases of the kidney. I mean, you drink this stuff, you are just cured of everything. They also issued a 6-cent stamp in the center. This again is small. It's about the size of a wash franc. It had a banner advertising their remedy, the great kidney medicine. And look at this card that they issued as well. So they issued this interesting card here with a, almost cartoonish, and then they issued this beautiful portrait of a young lass with the Hunt's Remedy, sailor type, just a beautiful card, beautiful advertising. How could you not want to buy this product off the shelf when you went in? So just again, I marry the stamps with the products, with the cards, with the almanacs. It's just a fascinating area to collect. Here are two other beautiful ones from Fodstock, Pittsburgh, PA, their vermifuge. It never fails. That was their advertising. It's a beautiful horizontal imperforate stamp in this pale lake shade, eagle in the center. That looks familiar to us, right? You've seen the carrier stamps in the back of our Scots that were issued that have the eagle on it. Very similar. You'll see they always on these stamps, there's always the rate. This is a 1 cent. They always have the proprietor's name on it and the product. You'll see Vermifuge, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Fodstock. He marketed this in the 1830s. In the 1860s, when the stamps came around, he was very quick to jump on board. These, again, would have sealed his package. A couple million of them were issued on Olden silk. He passed away 1868. Schwartz and Hassel took over the company. They used his stamps until 75. And then they revised the design. So this is not the same stamp. If you look closely below, you'll see they put in J.E. Schwartz & Co. and they put Pittsburgh. They scratched out, they went back to the original die and they retouched it and got rid of Pittsburgh and added Schwartz. They got rid of Pennsylvania and they added Pitt, and they reprinted stamps and they updated the design. And then they printed them, about 750,000 of them, on silk pink and watermark paper, again, used to seal. So very, very beautiful stamps. These are always damaged. These are just, it's probably taken me 20 years to get these two copies really nice. You're always looking to try to get one that's a little bit better and not destroyed. Most of these, again, were ripped in half. And that's acceptable in the match and medicine space, as we call it, because of their utilitarian needs. So there always is expected to be some damage and small tears and rips and some staining and glue and whatnot because of how they were used. Here's one of their almanacs, this one from 1855, and they gave it away for free, number 12 free. 1859 for the year of our Lord, and just very nice and ornate, about the size of a small pamphlet or booklet, and it was probably 30, 40 pages, and they would give these out, again, promoting their company, what they were peddling, and then you would get a nice almanac. You'd have the rising of the moon, the tides, your farming, agricultural. You'd have tips and tricks, all that good stuff, a calendar, even notes. Here's a trade card that they also printed depicting Jolly St. Nick. He's dancing, his glove is missing. He's got Holly 3 hours of looking down at him like he's nuts. And the reverse shows an advertisement for the vermifuge to get rid of any of those nasty bugs or worms you might have. And it again tells you, and of course, the second, third paragraph is, physicians do not hesitate to recommend it and use it in their practice. And many of the most eminent of the profession from all parts of the country testify to its uniform success. In fact, it, in bold and italicized, never fails. I mean, so again, they are pushing their wares and advertising the heck out of it well before there was any FDA to really see what the heck is in this stuff. So that's what was out there. Folks were taking it. So, these stamps were engraved and laid down by Topenkopner on steel plates, and there were transfer rolls, and they were on different types of paper, and then they were laid out in plates of whether it was 50 or 100 or 30. And so they have the same little funny features that we find in our regular issue stamps, and one of those are double transfers. So you can, of course, also find double transfers and other varieties, shifts on these stamps. And here's one from J.B. Rose. This is a tiny stamp, 40 by 12 millimeters, tiny little label would have sealed their product. And it has a nice little image of a centaur right in the middle of it. Just a pretty little stamp. It comes in a few different denominations, 1 cent, 2 cent, 4 cent, depending on the size of the product. And here just happens to be a major double transfer in the 2 cents. I was able to plate this. I know it is position 1 from the top column, from the top row. Here's what a normal copy looks like at the bottom, 2 cents, very clean. Here is a clear doubling to TWO. You can see the extra ink. It shifted to the left even. And then I have 2 other copies to prove that it is absolutely from the same position. Here's a guide dot. Here's a guide dot. Here's a guide dot. Here is a line going up. This is the guide dots that the stenographer would have used to lay the actual transfer roll onto the plate. And it is the same exact double transfer. He has 3 separate copies from this same position at the top, position number 1. There's even side scratches that are consistent, and there's this scratch going across the top. So it is definitive. So just another little area if you want to collect regular issue stamps, revenue stamps, you can find double transfers on these because they went through the same engraving process and the same laying down. So again, and it's a pretty little stamp when you find these little stamps. So let's show you one of my favorites, a beautiful stamp, Fred Brown's Essence of Jamaica Ginger. This was not just a stamp. This is my background behind me. There's George, and I'm showing you the center. This was printed by Carpenter and Butler. And it is probably some of the most ornate and detailed engravings that you'll find. It's like the U.S. revenues that were issued by Butler Carpenter, if not more. This also served as a label and went on their bottle. If you look at the bottom, the directions for dosage are given. Dose, for a grown person, 1 teaspoonful. For a child, 10 to 12 years old, half a teaspoon. For a child, 2 to 5. This is good for everybody, folks. 15 to 20 drops, right? And to be given in sugar and water. So this is Essence of Jamaica Ginger. They had a lab at the northeast corner of 5th and Chestnuts in Philadelphia. They put it on their stamp. This is marketing. This is advertising. This is a directions label. This was on the bottle, and it was paying the tax, 2 cents to the U.S. Internal Revenue. You could see that here in the center. And Butler and Carpenter reused one of their Washington heads because that's what Frederick Brown wanted on it. We know what was in this. It had ginger, calamus, snakeroot, cinnamon. It had mace, cloves, and 50% alcohol. Everybody sit back, get a straw. We're going to give you some Jamaica ginger. You'll feel better in about 5 minutes. So, here you go. His oldest son graduated from the Philadelphia College of Pharmacy. He joined the firm. He took over control of the company. They issued these stamps. They're beautiful. They're very large. They're 52 by 103 millimeters. These went on the side of a bottle. They're found on thin old silk, pink, and watermark papers. The next slide just shows you the engraving. Oh, there are 2 varieties. This is a facsimile signature that of Fred Brown that he signed on his stamp. And this is supposed to be an E, and it does not look like an E. So after they issued the first one, he went back and they recut the die to make it look like an E, and they issued it. So we have 2 stamps here that were issued. You could find them the same, and they get 2 different designations in Scott. But again, look at the bottom. There's the dosage. It's telling you to be given in sugar and water. It's served as a bottle label. And just look at this engraving. I hope you can see that. These rosettes, if you look at your number 11s and number 10s on your 3 cent 1851, it was done by the same rose engine that Carpenter and Topin used. They reused that same rosette here. Look at Scott number 10 and 11 in the upper corners. That's the same. Even this tessellation, this is amazingly intricate work for the 1860s under candlelight, trying to do this die for the engraver. Just they had some of the best engravers out there. And they had a lot of practice because these guys were making banknotes before they got into the stamp business. So just phenomenal work. Let's go to the famous Mr. Barnes. man of many talents, proprietary medicines owner. Here is an essay. This is not an issued stamp, but he put himself on his stamps as well. He was a congressman, trustee of the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City, director of Long Island Railroad. He owned many proprietary medicine patents that he bought from other folks. Native New Yorker, Canandaigua, up in state New York, wholesale drug firm, New York City, 1853. He had branch offices across the country and in Canada. And he was he was an agent for many, many others. He was elected to Congress, as I said before, 2 years. He sold, he retired. He was just a very wealthy guy at the time, and he had his hands in this business. And he printed some of the, really his labels listed everything that he was peddling. The first three on the right, he didn't issue first. Let's talk on the left. Let's talk about the black stamps on the right. In 1863, the first stamps issued in 1863 were the three ones on the right: RS 20, 19, and 18. 1 cent, 2 cent, 4 cent. He issued them in black. He had his facsimile signature at the bottom, if you look closely, D.S. Barnes, New York. And he literally, this was advertising, everything he was peddling, he put on these large stamps. Drake's Plantation Bitters, Lyon's Magnetic Powder, Guysot's Yellow Dock, and Sarsaparilla. Mexican Mustang Liniment. You can't make these things up. This is what they were. He wanted to try to have his stamps pop. He wanted vermilion. He wanted Carmen. Too expensive. They told him to try vermilion. He ran very limited runs of these three stamps on the left. There's only 24 known of the 4 center that's here. I'm happy to have one of them. It's in great condition. These are usually destroyed, ripped, torn, just the mess. He went back to black after a very short print run. These are a couple thousand a piece, depending on how you find them. Most of them are just not in great condition. I'm really happy that, I was able to preserve these. I brought these back to the U.S. I repatriated them. The stamp RS-17, the 4 cent, was in Great Britain. The central one, RS-16A, was also in the United Kingdom. I think it was in Scotland in an old collection. And RS-15, this 1 cent here on the left, was in Canada in an old collection getting dusty. And I was able to bring it back here to the US. And these have all been, again, preserved. I soak these, and I've got a process to really soak them well in lukewarm, remove any crud, gum, years of aging. It's amazing just what a really good soaking in lukewarm, multiple changes over a period of time will do. Doesn't damage the stamps, get rid of any hinges, any paper, any odd stray, and then you blot them and press them and whop them in overnight, let them flatten, light pressure, and they come out and they look brand new. Any folds, any creases, you can get rid of them. I have soft brushes, all that good stuff. And so we really want to try to preserve these items and bring them back. And that's sort of his first 6. He didn't like his facsimile signature at the bottom. He took the original dies, and you see here, he got rid of his middle initial. He used the same stamps, and he just wanted printed Demas Barnes. He got tired of these vertical stamps. So in 1866, he printed these 3 because he had bought a building. So he had his 21 Park Row building in New York City downtown, and he wanted to put his building on it. And he issued again 1, 2, 4 cent for his various products that he issued. And these came on a myriad of different papers. And these are out there. You could find them. They're not uncommon. It's the vermilion ones that, again, I think there's 24 known of this. There's 40 or so that are in the census for 15. And there's probably 50 or 60 of the 16. Invariably, all of them are somewhat damaged. These are fairly respectable. Now I want to go into some even more interesting uses. And here's a very, very famous producer of the day, J.C. Ayre. If you collect encased postage stamps, you know of Ayre. If you collect advertising covers, you know of Ayre. If you collect silent pre-cancels and pre-cancel stamps, you know of Ayre. And if you collect Private Die Proprietaries, you know of J.C. Ayre. Practical and analytic chemist out of Lowell, Massachusetts. He was into railroad building, an inventor, patent medicines. He manufactured his own. He ran an apothecary. A lot of entrepreneurial things going on here way back in the 1840s, 50s, and 60s. He also wanted to advertise and differentiate his products. He went through various trials. You could find this long strip stamp in a couple of colors: carmine, purple, orange, green. There's only one or two or three of these known, very rare. Rarely you see them. A couple of folks have them. There are great students of this field, like, Mike Aldrich, Richard Friedland, Eric Jackson. I mean, this is their area of revenues, and they've come across and or moved a lot of these items that you see. But they also issued these. This is where they landed in black. These strips. Why are they in strips? Because they had little wooden boxes that contained their pills. And so they used it to seal the top and the bottom by wrapping it around. Here is a stamp on the wooden box. You tore it in the middle all the way around and you opened the package. So again, a label, a stamp, paid the revenue, it's marketing, it's advertising, and it sealed it and you tore it to get rid of it. Here's one of my copies. I think this is on watermark paper. It is unused. They used these for many years. Some of these were hoarded. Some of them never got put on products. Then the tax was not needed. The stamp was not needed. And so you did have some extras. And then there was a couple of individuals that went around the country that searched high and low. Lowy was one of them and a few others in the turn of the early 1900s. And they really were doing this for the collecting market. And they brought a number of these to the collecting market that we still see today. I like them when they're used as well. If I can get the original packaging and I can have the stamp, boy, that's hitting the mark. If I can get a trade card or an advertising cover, that's like a trifecta for the horse enthusiasts out there. They also printed these type of stamps in perforate. Not common. You don't easily find them. Here is a beautiful JC Air Force scent. This went on top of their bottle. It was used to seal the top of a bottle. They also, look at these beautiful die-cut stamps. They took some of these in perforates, they die-cut them, they would glue the back, and this went on the top of a bottle to seal the cork and the cap. And then you rip them open. So again, a lot of these don't stand the test of time. It's really nice to find them when they're in this good shape. Silk and watermark paper. These were also issued in a various trial colors, let's call them. Vermilion, green, purple, black, red, but they landed on blue, and that's what you find. The one here above that I have, which was in the very famous Joyce collection, he was the father of match and medicines and collecting, and he had the original archive from Butler and Carpenter with the original essays, dies, and proofs. And his collection was sold in the early 1990s, and it had literally every piece. Tens of thousands of stamps, documents, letters, the order book, the original proofs. This one you could see, I held it up to the light. This stamp is on beautiful revenue watermark paper. So you see it's go back. It's USIR, right? So US Internal Revenue. It's not USPS, United States Postal Service, right? So they used a special watermark paper. So I mentioned encased postage stamps when coins were going away during the Civil War, and they were very scarce, and you had postage currency that was issued. You also had encased postage stamps that were issued. Another form of having coin. It was legal tender. They encased National Banknote Company issued stamps, Scott 63, 65. In these, there's mica on top. This was a 3-cent coin. This was a 1-cent coin. And that Ayers was going to use that to advertise on the back, and he had Ayers sarsaparilla to purify the blood. And these are all, there's the patent, because Galt is the fellow that patented these little encased. So another fascinating area, not common, not out there. If you're into stamps and coins together, call it what you want, numismatics and all. I mean, it's just another great area to go down. It's advertising, it's stamps, it's currency, it's coinage, really cool. Here's a beautiful trade card. The little favorite Ayers pills. All those young ladies look really good. I guess the pills are working. I mean, they were just marketing this as best they could. Here is a bottle also of Ayers Agu Cure out of Lowell, Mass. Cure, Lowell, Mass, and Ayers is on the back. And it is this stamp here that would have been used on the top to seal here. That would have been ripped off. Very, very cool. I think I'm coming to the end. You guys have been very patient. Oh, That was the end. Look at that. I ended with a whole batch of interesting stuff. So there's some phenomenal references out there. You know, the Scott catalog does a really good job now of breaking these out in the section that's private die proprietaries. It comes after the general revenues, and then your wine revenues and your playing card revenues and your silver revenues, RG, and then I think narcotics, and then RKs, and then you get to the ROs, RPs, RSs, RTs, and RUs, and that's the matches, medicines, playing cards, perfumes, and oh my gosh, I'm missing one, and canned fruit. I just gave you a primer on the medicines. And there's so many more, hundreds and hundreds more. I just selected a few just to give you some of my favorites. But these are some great, this is really Holcomb put together really the Bible of patent medicine stamps and the history of the firms and the stamps. That's where a lot of my information comes from. There's also a few other references, Christopher West, the Kasten Holtz and Sons, Match of Medicines. A census by my friend Mike Aldritz is also out there, who also has been doing this for a long time. The revenue stamps in general by West also. And then there's even a larger book by Topin and Dietz, covers just all of US revenues. And then finally, a great reference, and there's a lot of other great collections that have existed. Auction catalogs are a great source of information, but the Morton Dean Joyce collection that was auctioned by Levitt in 91, it is 600 pages. Double-sided paper, introductions, color and black and white images of everything you could ever imagine he had, and it's been dispersed. And now almost everybody that's got a stamp can always put X Joyce at the end of it, because at some point it probably came out of his collection. I'll say thank you. I will take questions. I will stop sharing so we can see each other. I hope you enjoyed that little trip. I could share other stuff with you. Let me stop so I can see you. And I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll take any questions. I'll take any comments. You guys can hang up on me. I'm glad you're still with me. Thank you, Rick. Rick and Richard. I see a few. Richard, you want to go first, please, sir?
Yeah, Charles, you probably explained this, but how does the interaction between the drug company, the printer, and the government, which comes first, and how does it all work?
So the government, yeah, it's a great question, and that's something I probably should add a little. That interaction is really important. The government realized that there was money to be made, and they needed to collect revenues to grow to support the Civil War in the North. And Topin Carpenter had already the government printing contract for the general U.S. issued stamps, and then later on 1860s, because they lost that contract, right? It went to the National Banknote Company 1861, but Butler and Carpenter still had the contract with the government to produce the U.S. revenue stamps. So Butler and Carpenter were already talking to the U.S. government, and the government said, "Hey, we need to generate some capital." And so it was really Butler and Carpenter that went to the government, and because they were private business entrepreneurs who could print they could engrave any stamp for anybody. So they took an entrepreneurial approach and offered to print, to engrave for these companies that the government were looking to have stamps created for their products. So there's letters that are in the archive that show the communication between Butler and Carpenter talking to the government, because they already were producing U.S. general issue revenues, that, yeah, we'd be happy to go out and engage with these proprietors and tell them that we, for a few dollars, could do the engraving, and then they could print their stamps for them as a marketing and advertising. So very, very dynamic interplay here. And it was really Butler and Carpenter that went out on behalf of the government and said, yeah, we're available. And then they ended up doing it for literally everybody. There's almost nobody else that got the contracts to do the original die design and the engraving. Topin Carpenter did that. They had to get government approval for every private die. And those are in the records where they signed off on them, because the original Topin Carpenter archives, Joyce discovered and had them. And this has been written about. And so that's the interplay. I hope that answers it, Richard, for you, of how
So
this all
that-
came about in that period.
So then the drug company would say to the printer, I need to buy 5,000 stamps, and they'd pay them for them, and then they'd get them.
Yeah, so they would design it. So Butler and Carpenter would go, sure, of course, we can engrave for you. What would you like on your stamp? What would you like it to say? Hey, here's a few examples of what we've done for others. This is how it could look. We can put your head in the middle. We can put your product on it. The government set the standard. They knew what the tax was. You had to have U.S. Internal Revenue on the stamp. You had to have the proprietor's name, right? And you had to have some tablet somewhere that said what the value was. 1 cent, 2 cent, 4 cent, 6 cent. So that was set by the government. And then the rest of it was to the freedom of Butler and Carpenter working with the proprietor to decide the size, the shape, the color, the paper. There was quite a bit of freedom in there, Richard. You see it from the examples that I showed you. As long as they met the minimum government spec that I just told you, the government would approve it, and then they could go print them how they wanted them by the numbers that the proprietor wanted to order at the agreed upon contract. And the contracts exist. Some of them survive, and you could see those in the Butler and Carpenter archive that Joyce was able to recover before they were destroyed. So there's a lot of fascinating stuff out there on the history of that, but I hope that tells you the interplay. The government issued the mandate to generate revenue, but Butler and Carpenter already had the contract with the federal government to print the general issue revenue stamps starting in 1862. So by 1862 August, when they wanted to tax the commodities, Butler and Carpenter were ready to go, we'll do it, and we'll go engage with the proprietors who are making all these medicines and matches and perfumes, and we'll go, we can do the business for you. We can engrave the dies, and then we can print them. Thank you very much. Just it's a great little entrepreneurial thing that the government contracted printer was able to do. And the government said, sure, go, make it happen. Yep. Thanks, Richard. Great question. Rick, did you have a question, please?
I actually had two, and Richard asked part of mine. So let me just follow up there, so that if a company then came to that printer who had the contract, and the company said, I'd like 10,000 labels for my bottles, then would they essentially give $100 if it was a penny per label tax, and then the tax would be passed on to the government?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there was a fee that was charged for the cent, whatever the cent of the stamp was. There's a percentage that had to be paid. Carpenter and Butler and Carpenter took XYZ fee for doing the engraving and the printing, and a fraction of that, depending on whatever the cent was of the revenue that had to be paid, that was put aside and a check was sent to the federal government to cover the cost. So yes, absolutely. And the proprietor, they were meeting the tax, fine, we'll put it on our product, we could seal it, we get revenue, we'll sell more, their marketing. I mean, so this was this really worked well for the years that they were doing that, for the printer and the engraver, which were Butler and Carpenter, the government, who was generating revenue to help fund, and of course the proprietor, because it was almost like a seal of approval from the government that you had a government stamp on your package that said U.S. Internal Revenue, 1 cent, blah, blah, blah. It's almost like they were already was approved. So really, and then you supplement that with trade cards and almanacs. Big business going on back then during that 30, 40 years before they started to lock it down at the turn of the 1904, 5, and 6, when a lot of outcry was there. So yeah, great question too, Rick. So that's the interplay. Yes.
That's great. So really it was a win-win-win, best kind of business practice. Okay,
and listen, and if you were the quote unquote patient and you could have Jamaica ginger with 50% alcohol in it, I guess it was a win for the person that was taking the whatever they were drinking or eating, right? So very interesting times back then, pre-FDA. Yeah.
Okay, different kind of question. You mentioned your friend Michael Aldrich, and when I saw his name at the end, maybe that is going to be the answer to this, but you mentioned like B. Brandreth's pills, I think you mentioned earlier.
Yes, Brandreth's pills and Alcock's porous plasters.
There you go. So how did they get the census numbers for different kinds of papers? Is that just from having archives or folders of old papers?
Oh yeah, so Mike Aldrich, along with a number of the other collectors back then, because Joyce really was the one that started putting the census together over the 50 years that he was collecting in this field, from early 1900s through the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s into the 60s, right? Even a little bit later. All of the numbers I gave you on how many were issued and printed on the various paper types, that came direct from the order books from the Butler and Carpenter archives that Joyce was able to secure and save it from the trash heap. So you had all of that. He had the entire archive, and he was able to, so he had all the orders. He even had the original essays and dies that were signed off on of the original designs before then even they were engraved and made stamps. And so Joyce did a pretty good job of putting together, from looking at other folks that collected these and doing his own early research, an initial census. Michael then, in that later period, going through the 80s, building on what Joyce did into the 80s and then into the, I guess it was early 90s, he put his book out in 97. He was then able to look at prior auction catalogs, right? Look at Joyce's auction catalog and some of the other bigger auctions that had occurred. And by doing that, he was able to get some pretty good numbers around what you thought was the census at the time. A census is only as good as the people that share if they have the item or not. And it's only as good as the day it was published, because in 1997, the day after he published it, right, I'm sure somebody found something on silk paper to make the number go up by 1. But these numbers, even from 97 to today, which is 97, how many is that? Almost 30, whatever it is, 20 and change, have really stood the test. Every once in a while, a new variety comes out. But the numbers are pretty good because there's been this is a fairly specialized area of collecting and research, the matcha medicines. And those that collect it are fairly well known in this area, and they're pretty good if something comes up to share it, and you get them expertized. So you can search the APS's expertized archive, the Philatelic Foundation's archive. If you go there now, and they're all online, and you search the 500,000 records for matcha medicine, you could see any one that they've also expertized. So you can really do a pretty good job of getting a handle on how many are out there. And this has really stood the test because it goes back about 100 years, right? And over the years, as more auctions come out, and maybe a collection that hasn't seen the light of day in 50 years, the auction houses work with the Aldriches and the Erics and the Richards to look at those and look and see if there's any new ones that have come to market that could be added to the census. So the census continues. I am very proud to recently say that I discovered, after 150 years of research in this field, a brand new variety on a brand new type of experimental silk paper that had not been discovered by all of these students before me. I discovered it back in November. I just sent it to the PF. It has just come back with the good certificate. It's the discovery copy. It will be I'm working with Jay now at Scott to get it into the Scott catalog in 2022. It'll be RS68E as experimental silk. It's a Jeremiah Curtis, and it's the only one that's known now Census of One. And believe me, folks have checked. They've been looking for 150 years. And I'm just fortunate that in an old book, it was sitting there unnoticed. But if you know what to look for, and you know what experimental silk looks like, and it's not the same as general silk, sometimes you can make a new little discovery. And I'm happy to be able to add that piece. I'll share that with you at some point down the road. But that right now is going to go. It's on the auction. It's in Mike Aldrich's auction online in June. I'm putting it out there. I'm happy to find it, but it should be out there with everybody else, whoever wants it. God bless them. And then that will also allow Scott to give it the official catalog number and not the variety. And then they'll have an italicized price of whatever it sells for, because that's how Scott works. So, so every once in a while in this field, there's still some discoveries to be made of varieties on certain paper types that are just not common. So I hope that answers your question and anybody else's on that. It's a fun area because of the diversity. I love all my other stamps. I love covers, postal, but if you looked at the few stamps I showed you, the diversity of color, size, shape, die cut, perf, marketing, the topics, it's just a fascinating and broad area that's exciting to go down. So I'm happy to share it. Any other questions that I could answer? I'm happy to. Rick, did I answer your question though? Because I gave you a lot more than you probably wanted.
It's fascinating. Thank you so much, and I love your passion and your vast wisdom and knowledge that you share.
Man, don't talk to my mother because she'll say everything opposite that you just said. But thank you, Rick. You're very, very kind. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts on this topic of match and medicine and revenues? And you guys are great. Thank you.
We really do appreciate your sharing. It is fascinating.
Sure, my pleasure. I'm hoping maybe somebody else could jump into this space. Let them know. Send them my way. I appreciate you listening. This was fun. It's always fun to be able to present to you. So thank you. Thank you so much.
We thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, have a good night. Stay well. Enjoy. If I don't talk to you, enjoy the next month or two. But anytime you want me back, let me know. I'm sure I could finagle up some other even more diverse topic. And we'll talk again soon. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Charlie.
We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right. Sounds
bye.
good. Have a good night.
Appreciate it. Hey guys, that was really fun. Just a heads up for next week. 2 weeks from now is Memorial Day. We are actually going to take a holiday. So we won't meet that day. Next week, we're going to do a topic of like one of your favorite stories of how you got one or two or multiple stamps. So be thinking about how you can share. So
Great idea, Paula. Thank you so much.
no worries. I don't know about you guys, but we're raining out here.
Yeah, big time.
Been
Yeah,
raining all
my-
over.
My son just texted me they lost power in the Woodlands.
Ah,
So they've really gotten pounded just north of Houston all afternoon.
well, we got 3 inches this afternoon. So,
Yeah.
wow.
Have a good week, everybody.
We'll
Okay,
see you
too.
next week, guys.
bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Ralph, did you ever get that check I sent you? You did? Okay. Good deal. See you later. You're muted. Can't hear you.
How's that?
Now, you got you.
You want more?
Yeah, why not? The same amount would be good, and I've got a
Well, it's not going to be perfect, but you take a look at it. Give me what you want.
yeah. If you've
You'll
got
have to. I got it. I'll just put something in the mail for you. Okay.
yeah, I'm using it, so I've kind of slowed down a little bit because I haven't listed anything like a month, but I'm just like going on what I've got up there right now. But so don't break your
Yeah,
neck. I'm trying to-
I have. If you come, we come close to getting together. I've got some stuff of my own. If you could sell it for me, we'll make a deal.
Sure.
Some of it is some foreign kind of stuff that you've already liked to sell,
Yeah.
that you could take most of the profit.
No, I'll give you.
Yeah, and there's I'm trying to think. I have about those commemorative sheets that you're selling,
Oh, those damn things.
the
Yeah.
US,
The ones that I list and I pay money to list, and they
Yeah.
sit around and nobody buys.
The club has about 4 half-filled volumes. Some of them are totally encased in plastic,
Mhm.
which means that it weighs a ton. And there's some great, I mean, there's so much more invested in each one of those plastic protecting sheets.
Oh,
You
I
know, three hole punch, stuff like that. And of course, we have about, I'd say 250 of the first day covers with the gold reproduction,
right.
slightly brown envelope with the reproduction, the first day cancellation. And it's each envelope has the supplemental stuff, you know, the price list, the vendor BS.
Yeah.
I
mean, we could try to sell it. I don't know. I mean, you know, those commemorative sheets, I've sold like in a year, like 10 of them. And I got like,
you know, you don't always have to sell 50 of them to make any money.
I mean, I really thought maybe I could get some from topical collectors, but even then it's,
right.
I think we have to put them together in a big bundle, and maybe then somebody wants them, you know, that way, like a collection.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're neat. I've picked a few of them out for my topical collections myself. That's what I thought maybe other people would too, because it's kind of neat to see the little write up if it's a ship.
Mm-hmm. I say maybe there's 200 of them. I think Jonathan might have counted them because there's a number on the banker's box.
Okay. Well, you know, we can give it a shot, I guess. Just see what happens.
Someday you'll make a journey south. You know, I know you're up there in the South Pole. You just have to come north.
Yeah, as soon as I can catch a penguin, I'll get a ride on a whale or something. You know.
Yep. Oh no, when the that big Antarctic shelf breaks off, you just float up here.
There you go. Right.
By the time you get into the Gulf and land in Galveston, it'd probably be about 20 meters wide and 20 meters deep.
Completely underwater. There you go.
But there won't be any Galveston Island if the whole thing melted. It would be underwater.
Well, and there won't be any polar stamp collecting either. This is the big problem.
Yeah. Anyway. They never say anything about whether when the polar ice melts, whether it's going to lose. How much of the acreage is going to become covered up with water.
It's funny though. You hear about them talking about the warming, and then you hear like, well, they had the worst freeze in history, and the nuclear icebreaker is trapped in the ice for 6 months. Trying to get loose, and I don't know what to think. But
yeah.
Hopefully, I'll be long gone before we have to worry about anything serious. I don't know. Well, that's why I moved to Conroe, just so we didn't have to live in. Your part of Houston should be flooded and underwater before long.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Are you coming into the show on Friday?
I'm thinking I will. Yeah. I mean,
you think Friday?
Probably. I'll try. That way I can. Yeah, I think I can swing Friday as long as they don't throw something. My calendar is open right now. That's why I say probably. If my work puts something on my calendar, then all bets are off. But
what about coming early and we can rendezvous?
I'll try that. Yeah, I'll let you know if I can't. How about that?
Yeah, Jonathan has a couple of boxes for the beginners booth. I always like to get them before Sue does. One, it gives me a chance to get a sneak preview and pull about 5 or 10 items if I find them for the collection. On one hand, the other hand, I've got a ton of low value commems that, and I've got a whole box of partial sheets. I'm talking about 500 of them.
Of UF.
Sheets and partial sheets. Maybe I'll throw that box in the trunk and just we could sit in the cafeteria, in the back corner and look at that shit.
Okay, that works. I mean, sure.
All right.
You know, while I've got you, since I'll probably see you then. Belgium, how are you set on Belgium? I'm trying to make my way through a stack of Belgium. They're all pretty cheap, but they're like 60s mainly.
I'm pretty good, but the 60s I'll trade. You know, I don't know where we stand. I'll trade with you. There's only one Belgium stamp that I really want to get. And it's a fairly common stamp, but there's a right after about 1944, 45, they discounted their postage. They lowered their postal rates, so they overprinted the common stamp of the king minus 20%.
Huh. Okay.
I don't know if you've seen those.
I haven't really seen it. I don't know that much about my Belgium stamps yet. I just started collecting them because I had Netherlands and Luxembourg, and I thought, well, shit, I should do Belgium too, you know. So, I printed up some pages, and and I'll tell you, I don't know where the hell I got them, but I've got these 4 really early issues, a whole bunch of them, and they say in Scott some of them are like $20 a piece, and I've got like multiples of them. You might be interested in a few of those. So
yeah. They're I have some of them, but look, if it's easy to you could move 500 stamps in a glassine envelope. We don't have the weight, and whatever you want to bring along, I'll take a look. I'll write down what I like, and we can go.
I'll see what I can. I'm just I'm afraid to overpromise here because I know but I'm going to try to get it finish that up and get it and bring it, and then you can take a look at least and just bring your little catalog you check things off with, and then if you see some and you're not sure or whatever, you can take those, and then
most of my late Belgium is a nice used collection. I'm talking about from the 1950 on to 67. I have a each item. Maybe I lack a handful, but it's all used. Maybe there's 1 or 2 sets that were mint that I had acquired.
Yeah.
But it's not anything that I want to get a complete run of unused, unless
they're cheap. I mean, honestly, it's like if you're worried about the price on or whatever. I mean, they're like 25 to 40 cent stamps. Maybe a couple of 60 centers stuck in there. I don't think any of them break $1, but
right. I like to see the early ones. I mean, I have some early ones, but condition, when you can look at 4 or 5 and you find one that's a whole lot better than the one you have, I like to upgrade. I don't have many space fillers in my entire collection. I'm not saying my stamps are bad, but every once in a while it had the cancellation, was a pretty good smudge or something ugly,
I haven't even mounted these yet, so I don't even know. I haven't even looked at the backs of them or anything like that. They look pretty good from the front, but they're, how that is.
Yeah. And there are reprints and a lot of reprints on that early stuff.
Yeah.
Remember not counterfeit, but, they reprinted them. And as they talk about even the U.S. stamps, each batch, when the printer mixed the inks together, it was what it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't know. They're I don't know. Like I said, I haven't really dug into them yet. So
Yeah.
maybe you find something really good. I don't know. I'll try to get them. I'll try to have them ready by then.
Okay. Hey, and if you can come early, but I'm gonna try to get there kind of early. But if you get there a little bit later, I'll definitely wait for you.
Okay.
And then if it turns out to be time for lunch, sneak off someplace and get a good, a healthy lunch.
Sounds good to me. Sounds
2
good.
cheeseburgers and, a milkshake. That's healthy, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'll bring the penguin. So anyway, we'll see you later, Ralph.
All right.
You have a good
Hey,
one.
always fun.
Yep. Same here.
Bye-bye.